Hello and welcome to Sci-Fi Night. I'm your host, Sebastian Mendel Martinez, and this is the show where we take a look at some of the lesser known sci-fi and horror movies out there and try to find the right expectations needed to get the most out of them. Or at least that's what we usually do. This time we're going to do something a little bit different. This is a Sci-Fi Night Special where we're going to take a look at a special little period in sci-fi horror. The 1989 underwater sci-fi craze. What is it, you ask? Well, you're about to find out, because between the years of 1989 and 1990, not 4, not 5, but 6 films were released with sci-fi and horror themes, all of which take place underwater, or mostly anyway. So we're going to take a look at these different films, find out what caused this strange phenomenon in sci-fi horror, and see how we stack up against each other. Enjoy. Yep, you heard that right. 6 films with similar themes in such a short period. The Abyss, Leviathan, Deep Star 6, Lords of the Deep, and The Evil Below were all released in 1989. And The Rift was released in 1990, though production started in 1989. Why was all this underwater sci-fi horror made during this period? The films are all more or less about man-made, natural, or alien creatures attacking some kind of underwater installation or expedition. So what caused this? What prompted this 1989 underwater sci-fi craze? Well, I did some very brief research and I couldn't really find anything substantial. If any of you guys know watching it, so please by all means let us know in the comments, but we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that might have done it anyway. USOs, or unidentified submerged objects, have been sighted on a large scale since the mid-1900s, so nothing particular seems to have happened during the 80s. However, parts of the Titanic were discovered in the mid-80s. In addition, huge underwater rock formations resembling a sunken city were discovered off the coast of southern Japan during the mid-80s as well. Is this what started the underwater sci-fi horror craze? Well, we're not sure, but let's take a look at these films and see what they have in common. So obviously all these films mostly take place underwater, but one of them kind of sticks out from the rest of the bunch. The Evil Below is pretty much just based around scuba divers who just go a couple meters under the surface. That, and it's also very obscure and hard to find. The quality of the film itself is not very good, and the copies out there on the internet are certainly not better. Also, it's just not very good film in itself either. I almost didn't include this film on the list because of how poorly it's made and the fact that it's pretty different from the other films. In all honesty, it's pretty harmless. It's got a bit of 80s B-movie charm, but not a whole lot of it.
Nice boat. The rest is bull.
The film is about scuba divers going after a cursed treasure, and since the film doesn't go below like 10 meters, that's about where we're going to end with this one. You shouldn't really see it, it's hard to find, and almost harder to sit through.
Did I say something funny?
No.
So, with that shitty film out of the way, we're going to move on to the main films that make up the bulk of this 1989 sci-fi underwater craze. So, we're going to start off with the film that is by far the best film on the list on paper, The Abyss. The Abyss is a film by legendary director James Cameron, director of Aliens, Terminator 2, and many other films. The film is about the crew of a deep-sea oil rig who are asked to assist the Navy in a mission to recover information about a nuclear submarine that seems to have come into contact with some kind of alien species.
What the hell is it?
I'll tell you what it's not. It's not one of ours. Sir, contact changing to heading 214. Speed 80 knots.
The film stars big-name actors like Michael Biehn and Ed Harris, and the ending is actually pretty cute and sweet. But with that out of the way, we're going to move on to something that's not very cute and sweet, and it has about 50 times more blood. 1989's Leviathan is directed by George P. Costamos, who directed Rambo First Blood Part 2 and Tombstone, so obviously he's got a talent for action.
Makes me feel better already.
The film is about a group of underwater miners who encounter the wreckage of a Soviet underwater vessel. When bringing up the loot in form of money and of course vodka, one of the crew members develops a mutation as a result. This mutation soon escalates into a full-blown monster attack. It's worth mentioning that this film also stars everybody's favorite robotic police officer, Peter Weller, also known as RoboCop.
What the hell's going on here?
And actually, this film also has a slew of other recognizable faces.
Give me a cookie.
So the basic setup between these two movies is kind of similar, two different underwater installations coming into contact with some kind of Soviet vessel, but after that the similarities kind of die out. Sean S. Cunningham directed Deep Star 6, and if his name sounds familiar, it's because he directed the original Friday the 13th. The film stars Miguel Ferrer, the guy from RoboCop and The Guardian. Yeah, so let's face it, star power isn't really this film's strong side.
Very funny, assholes.
So the film is about an experimental underwater nuclear base that managed to disturb some kind of underwater creature when entering a cavern at the depths. The beast gets brought back to the installation and the crew needs to band together to fight it off.
God damn it, there's something in the fucking airlock!
So, aside from the obvious monster connection, there's also a similarity based around the whole nuclear power thing, be it a submarine or an underwater nuclear installation. Also, all these three movies have something in common in that it's all pretty much commercial companies doing what's not really military work. But, are there any more similarities? Let's find out. 1990's The Rift, also known as Endless Dissent, is about a deep-sea submarine, the Siren 2, that goes searching after a first expedition, of course, the Siren 1. On the first Siren, some kind of horrific tragedy occurred that caused the ship to sink. The designer of the submarine gets unwillingly called into a NATO-led rescue and salvage mission when the distress beacon of the first Siren starts going off. The film stars R. Lee Ermey of Full Metal Jacket fame, Jack Scalia, as well as a cast of B-movie actors that you've never heard of. The cast is almost exclusively made up of people pulling off bad accents.
Weed sample affirmative, sir.
I could have done something!
No, there was nothing you could do.
Yes, I could have done something!
It's like listening to those two foreign guys down at the coffee shop who've been living in the US almost long enough to sound American.
Oh man, what a good bunch of partying at that discotheque. They played one of my audience requests. Way awesome.
And of course, the obligatory token black guy.
I ain't waiting around to get A. Come on, get some!
Whose name is Skeet. Wait, Skeet? Alright, whatever. Upon reaching the area near the first Siren submarine, they encounter some hostile creatures, and after that, things get even more out of control. So we've got another similarity in the form of an underwater submarine being searched for, and there's a bit of a divide between monsters being either man-made or affected by man, or being natural/alien. But let's move on and see whatever similarities we can find. So let's move on to the last film, 1989's Lords of the Deep, directed by Mary Ann Fisher. Wait, Fisher? Is that her actual name? And she directed an underwater... Alright, whatever, it's probably just a weird coincidence. Either way, you've probably never heard of her directorial work, as this was her only film. She has, however, produced films like the Alien ripoff Forbidden World and Battle Beyond the Stars. Speaking of stars, this film doesn't really contain any. You might recognize Priscilla Barnes from James Bond License to Kill, but you probably won't. The film takes place in a future where the ozone layer is all but depleted, leaving the need for underwater habitats. While one of the first underwater installations is in operation, one of her submarines is lost, and eventually the crew come into contact with some kind of alien-like creatures on the bottom of the ocean. So the basic overarching similarity that all of these films have is that they're about some kind of underwater installation, mostly non-military, that come into contact with either an underwater monster or some kind of alien. After that, that's kind of where the similarities end though. Maybe the big reason all these films were made around the same time is because somebody heard that James Cameron was making an underwater sci-fi film and they all decided to copy him. You know, I really wish I could have found some kind of underlying reason, some kind of event as to why all these films were made when they were, but I just can't. Like I said, if anyone knows, please let us know in the comments. As of now, this is just like the biggest coincidence in cinema history or something. So, since we can't really unravel this mystery, let's just find out how these films stack up against each other in different categories. Let's start out with story. So this has to go to The Abyss, which is just the best overall film. I mean, come on, it's James Cameron. We know damn well he's excellent at story-driven sci-fi. The Abyss also has the most solid acting, the effects are great, and overall the production is just wonderful. The motivations of the creatures is very interesting, and the characters are nice and fleshed out. Overall, the story is by far the most entertaining, with a couple of twists and turns. If you haven't seen it, you really should. It doesn't have a whole lot of deaths or any gore, but it's got that classic 80s sense of adventure and wonder. So, that's all fine and good, but who needs story when people can get shot in the face? Which film is the best action? While The Abyss certainly has a lot of really good moments of action and suspense, there's also a whole lot of character building and atmosphere, which are certainly good and far from boring, but if you want the action to kick in early, then you're kind of watching the wrong film. Admittedly, none of these are really non-stop action horror fests, but some of them are definitely more action-packed than others. Leviathan, Deep Star 6, and The Rift are definitely the three films with the most action of the bunch. The Rift probably kicks off with the earliest kill, it's also the second shortest film of all of these six. I can't wholeheartedly say that The Rift has the best action though, that's kind of a tie between Leviathan and Deep Star 6. Now, I think I'm gonna have to go with Leviathan over Deep Star 6 in this category, simply because the action is a bit more built up and overall just well constructed. But a huge part of action is the effects. So which film has the best effects? So like I said, The Abyss has the overall best production, and a lot of that includes effects. Most of those effects are based around structures and backgrounds though. When it comes to creature effects, again we find the trio of Leviathan, Deep Star 6, and The Rift. The quality of which is in that very descending order. It's worth mentioning that Stan Winston did the effects for Leviathan, and of course he's a special effects legend who's worked on Aliens, Iron Man, Terminator 2, and many more movies, so that's obviously a hard act to follow. Deep Star 6's effects hold up pretty well, but they're just not as impressive as Leviathan's. The Rift gets points for being downright charming in terms of effects.
I think it's coming from inside.
And while they're not really that great, some of them are pretty damn good, and the other ones are just kind of charming because they really are doing the best they can. So I'm actually gonna have to give this one to Leviathan once more. Now don't get me wrong, The Abyss has great effects and awesome production, but when it comes to effects that really just catch your eye, I'd say Leviathan stands out a bit more. So lastly, we round off with characters. It's hard not to go with The Abyss on this one, but there were definitely enjoyable characters in the other films. Leviathan stands out with a strong cast like Peter Weller, Ernie Hudson, and Daniel Stern. The Rift has some pretty interesting and entertaining characters, especially with Arlie Ermey, but the other ones you just kind of laugh at, not with. Overall though, the characterization in The Abyss is just simply stronger than all the other films.
They're really very sweet.
So the overall winner here has to be The Abyss. I mean, come on, it's a great movie, it's a classic, and it's got the most impressive cast, crew, and production. At a close second in terms of entertainment, we find Leviathan, which really holds up surprisingly strong even if it is a bit cheesy. At third place, we find Deep Star 6, which is fun, kind of stupid, not really that original, but still enjoyable at the very least. If you like sci-fi horror, especially underwater, then you should really have seen this already. Then when we come on to B movies, then that's where you find The Rift. Because really, it's not really among the top 3 in terms of quality. They were trying, they were really doing the best they could, but it doesn't hold up. If you like B movies and cheese, then you could really do a whole lot worse than this, and it's not that long either. The last two, The Evil Below and Lords of the Deep, well, it kind of depends on how much time you're willing to put down. There's some interesting stuff going on, especially in Lords of the Deep, but they just don't really hold up all that well. The quality isn't that great, and the production isn't much better either. So, we actually rounded off this list with, I guess, a top 4 of movies that can be kind of fun to watch and 2 films that aren't really that much fun at all. Unless really you like B movies and you like sitting through long stretches of a whole lot of stuff going on. But that about does it for this Sci-Fi Night Special, based solely around underwater sci-fi movies, part of a 1989 sci-fi craze. Do you guys know what prompted this? Please let us know, because like I said, I'm just way too lazy to look it all up. I'm your host, Sebastian Mel Martinez, and we'll catch you guys next time.
So I can hear you, but I can't talk, right?
The fluid prevents the larynx from making sound, excuse me. It'll feel a little strange.
Yeah, no shit.